I've gotten a lot of requests over these past few weeks to cover this very hotly debated game, so I suppose it's time. Today, I'm going to dive into 2020's epic sequel, a part 2 that fans have been anticipating for years, and a game that's caused some controversy in its community. You all know the one. Today, I'm reviewing Epic Dumpster Bear Part 2, He Who Bears Wins. What? For those of you unfamiliar, Epic Dumpster Bear was a Wii U turned PS4 platforming game that makes near-exclusive use of pre-made Unity engine assets. Playing as a janky-looking bear, you fought your way through the vast wastelands of Canada, fighting a greedy corporation that stole Dumpster Bear's food and destroyed his home, even going to space to destroy this corporation once and for all. While it may at first glance be just another horrible-looking amateur Unity game, the difference here is that this game was intentionally horrible-looking, meant to be a dumpster dive for assets to fit the garbage theme. Dumpster Bear 1, despite its looks, was surprisingly a blast, ending up as this interesting hybrid of the classic blocky Super Mario Bros. Level designs with a somewhat thoughtful focus on momentum, ensuring that when you flew through the levels at full speed, you would feel a rewarding rush of satisfaction as you leapt perfectly between blocks and enemies. So when Epic Dumpster Bear 2 was surprisingly announced, I was actually kind of excited. A chance to address the first game's shortcomings and follow up the hilarious, over-the-top story? I was sold, although, disclaimer, I actually wasn't sold since the developer was kind enough to send me a review copy before I could even get around to buying the game. It's also worth noting for the sake of transparency that this developer and I have spoken a few times over the years and are pretty friendly. Of course, if you know me, you'll know that this won't be affecting anything I say here in this review, and it certainly won't affect my critical opinion. In fact, I've criticized both games directly to him. Usually, I end up being harsher, if anything, when I receive a press copy of a video game. And in usual tradition with review copies here on the Golden Bolt, I'm going to follow this disclaimer by talking about the worst part of the game. It is very short. I completely beat this game in under 3 hours, including all of the optional levels, all of the collectibles, and the bonus world. I got the Platinum Trophy in under 5 hours. It's an incredibly short, incredibly easy, albeit incredibly fun few hours, but the price was raised from $5 in Dumpster Bear 1 to $6 here. Now, obviously I'm not going to complain too much about a single dollar, but in terms of content, the game is very scaled back, which calls the price into question. I went back to my PS4 save file of the first game, which I played after beating the game on Wii U once before that, and I put more time into just the required levels there than I did into getting the Platinum Trophy in its sequel. Where Dumpster Bear 1 had 33 proper levels and 67 overall levels, Dumpster Bear 2 only has 20 mandatory levels and only 44 in total. The enemy variety is also decently scaled back, with the wolves, drones carrying cows, and Avenged Sevenfold logos nowhere to be found. Instead, most of the enemies we've got here are color swaps of the first game's bees, each with slightly different abilities. Much of this difference in game length is due to the first game having some, frankly, bad levels at times, including the biggest sin in platforming, auto-scrolling levels. In Dumpster Bear 2, a clear effort went into making the difficulty curve far more gradual, and while that results in the game sometimes not feeling as satisfying as I would personally like, it also results in a game that's much more fun to play overall. The biggest tweaks here are in Dumpster Bear's control. One of the things I loved about the first game is that even after 2 years and on a completely different console, the game feel of Epic Dumpster Bear is one that I could sink right back into instantly. And 2 years after that, because apparently I'm destined to review this series every 2 years, the same is true here, with some huge improvements to our bear's mobility. The double jump power-up, which was previously locked to certain levels, has been upgraded to become a standard ability. Dumpster Bear's momentum has been tweaked and his wall jump improved, and his most powerful new ability is an absolutely broken boost attack. Seriously, this ability removes almost any challenge you'd ever have in Dumpster Bear 2, because not only can you use this as a third jump that you can influence in any direction, the boost gives you complete invincibility during nearly its entire duration. I'll admit that part of the reason that I beat this game so quickly is because if I was ever in a precarious situation, I would just use the boost attack to avoid taking any damage. There's no reason not to abuse this. There's no cooldown, no punishment, and in fact, if you're trying to complete the time trial for a given level, you'd be punished for not abusing the boost. Because of how powerful this new ability is, Dumpster Bear 2's level design often replaces enemies with unkillable objects, hence why the enemy variety is comparatively low next to its predecessor. To some extent, this is fine, but I did find myself missing the levels from the first game that encouraged me to learn the terrain and perfectly time my jumps to bounce off of enemy heads and reach a secret exit or get one of the game's 3 red coins per level. Epic Dumpster Bear 2 tries to focus more on platforming challenges, but thanks to these new powers, the platforming itself can almost become a formality at times. Of course, it's a super fun formality, and the good very much outweighs the uncertainty I feel towards the new level arrangements. Dumpster Bear 1 had so many valleys to balance out its very high peaks, and while I don't think that Dumpster Bear 2 hits the same peak height, the average quality of the levels is so much higher despite that. Thanks to the now permanent double jump and the sort of kind of triple jump, many levels are far more vertical affairs, requiring skillful use of the improved wall jump as well as those abilities. In fact, my favorite level in this entire series, oh my god, this is a series, whatever, is in this game. An optional side level that makes almost exclusive use of what I would call inverted stair blocks, a series of overhanging walls that you can only scale via wall jump. Now, the wall jump, while improved from the original game, still isn't perfect, so this level can be a bit frustrating to speedrun, but when you hit that groove, it's some of the flashiest, dumbest, most fun things that you'll do in a platformer this year. Generally, the optional levels tend to be, in my opinion, the most fun that Dumpster Bear 2 has to offer, because you can really feel the developers starting to play with the mechanics in a less traditional way. The main level path is definitely more reserved in order to hold on to a solid difficulty curve, a place where the first game really struggled and certainly turned off some players. That doesn't mean that the main levels are boring by any stretch, I just think that as a Dumpster Bear expert, good god, those are words that just came out of my mouth, I want to see these incredibly fun mechanics continue to be used in challenging new ways. At the end of each of the 5 main worlds is a boss fight, all of which are every bit as over the top and ridiculous as the first game. Actually, no, I lied. That cow just did a fucking Hadoken. These are even more insane. The boss fights, or rather the cutscenes afterwards, are generally where most of this game's story is presented, although Dumpster Bear 2 introduces a second cutscene a few levels into each world that I don't recall being in the original. Let's just say that for a game that opens up with Dumpster Bear flying back to Earth from orbit after destroying a space station, the story lives up to the batshit levels of the original game. From that Street Fighter cow to a brain with legs to Dumpster Bear's brainwashed power-walking father, the bosses and their cutscenes are just an absolute mess, and I love everything about it. Well, everything except the ending, or lack thereof. Where the first game ended definitively enough that 2's announcement surprised me, 2's ending is a straight-up cliffhanger for an epic Dumpster Bear 3, which I can only assume will come out in 2022 to continue the trend of me reviewing these games every other year. This didn't really feel earned considering Dumpster Bear 2's short length. For the game to end with Dumpster Bear pledging vengeance on the corporate welfare state before fading to black, and then for the bonus world's true ending teasing some sort of Canadian revolution, I don't know, it just kind of soured me just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see a third game, but I would have loved even more to see a more complete second game. We do get a Dumpster Bear training montage though, so you know what, I'll let it slide. The bonus world, despite being locked behind optional collectibles, is another spot where the game really lets loose with more challenging platforming, and this is the stuff I love to see. For those of you so inclined, every level also has a time trial mode and a target at the very end of the level onto which Dumpster Bear jumps face first. If you get a bullseye, you'll get a perfect 100 points, but thankfully you don't need all 2,000 points to get the Platinum Trophy. It would be way too frustrating to have to replay the entire level, as short as they may be when you know what you're doing, just to get the equivalent of a perfect flagpole jump in Mario. The time trials are often going to bring you right down to the wire if you want that elusive gold medal, so while Dumpster Bear 2 is even more of a speedrunner's dream than the first one, prepare for some frustration if you're just trying to go for all the trophies. I mean, for one, you can't even see the medal requirements until you're in the level itself, which means you've got to start a level, then pause to check the times, and then restart the level because you just lost a second from pausing. The fact that it took me almost as long to get the platinum as beating the game should say enough by itself because I completed every level and got every red coin in that initial 3 hours of playtime. Anyway, as fun as it is, obviously the elephant in the room is this game's looks, and just as I've said in my reviews of Dumpster Bear and its PS4 port, yes, this game looks bad. But it looking bad is part of the charm. This ironic use of these stock assets is always funny to see, and for such a fun game to hide behind such trash visuals is even funnier. Plus, the game still has a killer soundtrack, reusing many of the earworms from the first game and adding in a couple new tracks from the same composer. Make no mistake, the only two places that this game falls short are in its visuals and its length, and its visuals are intentional and end up becoming a positive. Everything else about Dumpster Bear 2 is a stellar experience for the $6 price tag, even if I would personally want just a little bit more meat out of the game. Which brings us to the golden question. Should you buy Epic Dumpster Bear 2? If you're looking for a really cheap, really fun platforming time, absolutely. The fact that my only hangup is that I want more of this game speaks volumes about the quality of a game that you almost certainly wrote off from the thumbnail alone. You'll more than get your money's worth out of Epic Dumpster Bear 2, even if you'll beat the game in just a single sitting. That's because the game will likely be fun enough to keep you coming back until you've beaten every single level and grabbed every single salmon that it has to offer. So there you have it. There are my thoughts on June 2020's big PS4 sequel. I don't really know why everyone's complaining online about Part 2 so much. What's that? Wait, that came out? Oh, fuck. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to take a look at my video on the first Epic Dumpster Bear, you can go ahead and click right here. If you do want to watch something about The Last of Us, I've also got a video from last year analyzing the first game and why I was a bit concerned about The Last of Us Part 2, which, tell me if I'm right. I haven't played The Last of Us 2 yet. I've been too busy with other projects like this one. Oops. And if you want to support the Golden Bolt, you can do so by subscribing, or if you're generous, by supporting the channel on Patreon, like these fine folks here, including Goldstorm07, Wolf Chaosan, and Buckles Chucklow. Until next time, stay golden. Man, I really wish Dumpster Bear was less buff, though.